I was an immigrant at the age of 8. I immigrated here from Italy. I attended the public schools. I went through the CUNY system when tuition was for free. So all of the services that the city offered me and my family elevated us into the middle class. My mother was a garment worker. My dad was disabled. Mm-hmm. She supported us on a garment worker's salary. And I want to do the same thing for future generations of New Yorkers. We live in the greatest city in the world. We deserve the best political system. We should focus on how to promote democracy in New York City so we maintain the premier place in the world as the #1 city. We're lagging behind in many areas, and I've got some proposals to change that.
Could you speak about a little bit about your political platform or
Sure.
about your vision about how you would change things here in New York City?
Well, the first thing I would do, Teddy, is change the political system because everything flows from there. We have what I call a legally corrupt political system, which is driven by big money, people who do business with the city, lobbyists. I'm not accepting any monies from people who are lobbyists in this campaign. I am running a campaign of grassroots activists and actually people who are interested in good government, people who are interested in a city that works for all instead of a few wealthy donors. And I maintain that the biggest problem we have in America, not only in New York City, is a political system that is really undemocratic. We almost have an oligarchy. We have a couple of things that are going on in other places, which I think can make a major difference. For example, Seattle. They've got a program called Democracy Vouchers, which is fantastic because every single registered voter in Seattle receives four $25 vouchers from the city, and they can donate to any candidate running for municipal office. So you're forcing candidates to engage with citizens rather than spending time on the phone calling wealthy lobbyists, right? And you're forcing them to engage. It will increase participation, and it's pro-democracy. I want to bring that to New York City. So I'm not reinventing the wheel. I'm not saying, okay, the system is corrupt, but what do you do about it? I've got a plan to address it, and it's based on what they're doing in Seattle. Maine is doing some good things. Vermont is doing some good things. South Dakota just passed some great anti-corruption legislation. So those are the things that I think are most important because everything flows from the political system. If the political system is corrupt, then you're going to have the fruit of the poison tree, basically.
Now, Sal, if you were talking about a 10-part series or a 5-part series before the show, we were talking about various topics that you could talk about if you came on a weekly basis or bi-weekly basis. What would those topics be that would be of interest to our great audience here at WPAT?
Well, I think the political system and talking about that in depth and how it impacts services. People, when you talk about political reform, people's eyes glaze over, but they don't realize that money's being diverted to donors. It can go into mass transit, it can go into public services, parks. There's a huge connection that people don't make. So I would need some time to talk about that in depth.
How about some other topics?
Mass transit is a major issue. The city of New York is heavily indebted and must expand its mass transit system. Otherwise, we're going to choke as a city. We're in total gridlock as it is. It's an environmental issue. It's an economic issue, and we're not doing enough to bring our mass transit system up to stuff. It shouldn't take us 90 years to build an extension to a subway service like a Second Avenue line. We have transit deserts all over the city, in the Bronx and parts of Brooklyn. We need to expand subway service to those areas of the city.
How would you change? Give us several ways in which you would change the subway system or the mass transit system.
Yeah,
what do we need to do to improve?
We need to enhance its funding. It's being shortchanged by the state and the city, and there are a couple of bills in Albany which would do that, which would direct money into mass transit so we can have enhanced subway system and also special bus lanes where buses can move much more efficiently than they do in the city now, because gridlock is a major problem. And without a mass transit system that services all New Yorkers, the city of New York is going to have difficulties growing into the future. So that's an important service. Schools are another area we have to focus on. Our education system.
What are some of the changes in education?
I was a teacher for 11 years, so I know a lot about the public school system. One of the things I would do is train our teachers better. We need internships for teachers, like we do for doctors, like we do for other professions, so that they really are when they finish their internships, they know that they want to be in that classroom, right? We lose 40% of our teachers the first year they're in the system. So we have to revamp that. We also have to focus on early childhood education. We know neurologists have now demonstrated, we can spend an hour on this as well, that the first 3 years of a child's life are pivotal, and stress causes serious problems for kids, especially in poor neighborhoods. So what happens is when they come into our classrooms at 4, 5 years of age, they're already having serious problems concentrating. They're having problems with anger management. All of that is caused by stress, and we need to intercede early on, even prenatal care for mothers. Especially in poor neighborhoods of the city. And this is not a politician talking, these are neurologists. Now we know for a fact that if we address this early on, we can have kids that come into our schools that are ready to learn. So those are two areas I would focus on. Better training for teachers, early intervention, even prenatal, is in poor communities of the city.
Now, I understand you recently teamed up with actor and animal activist Rob Becerra for animal welfare in New York City. Can you foresee and explain making it a no-kill shelter and having state-of-the-art facilities similar to Austin, Texas?
Well, Teddy, the situation in New York City with the animal care and control, which is supervised by the Department of Health, is really untenable. We're having animals killed on a regular basis. They're catching all kinds of diseases in these shelters. They're overcrowded. They're using drugs that are outdated. So it's inhumane, and we need to change the system. And one thing I can do as mayor unilaterally is revamp the shelter system in New York City and look at Austin, which is a state-of-the-art facility, and just model it after what they're doing in 5 boroughs, 5 different shelters, all state-of-the-art, no-kill policy, no crowded conditions.
What's the first step that you would take to improve the quality of these shelters?
I would, as mayor, I would immediately allocate the money for it, and it's something I can do. Unlike Mr. De Blasio, the mayor, who said the first day he was going to ban carriage horses from the city, and then he says, "Well, I can't do it because the city council won't allow me to do it." Well, with the animal care and control situation, I don't need the city council. Sal Albanese can do it as mayor unilaterally because of the tremendous budget power that the mayor has. And all it comes down to is dollars and cents. And New York City should be in the vanguard of the way we treat animals, because what we do here has a spillover effect, not only in New York City, but throughout the world. What we do here in terms of political reform, what we do here in terms of taking care of animals. Why should Austin, Texas be ahead of New York City and have a no-kill policy and have shelters that are the envy of New York City? We should be ahead of Austin, Texas. It's not a hard thing to do. It takes a little bit of political will. I was fortunate to be educated by Rob and a lot of the folks who are involved with animal rights. I didn't think things were that bad. I really didn't realize it until I started talking to them, getting feedback.
And you were a councilman in Brooklyn?
Yeah, I was a council member in Brooklyn for
How long?
15 years.
15 years?
1982 to 1997, correct.
What did you learn and enjoy most about being councilman here in New York City and Brooklyn?
What I've learned is that it's important to be independent and not be controlled by machines, not be controlled by party leaders, so you can vote in the interest of the public. I suffered for it as a council member financially because I never got what they call a stipend or a lulu. That I was in a small cubbyhole for 15 years, like a gulag of an office. but it was worth it because I was able to vote my conscience. It was 250. Well, my office I had 2 offices. Each council member has an office in the neighborhood, and you have an office at City Hall at 250 Broadway. And my office was this little cubbyhole, 250 Broadway, which most council members, as you gain seniority, they move you to bigger offices.
And you're also an attorney.
I'm a lawyer and I have a finance background, which is another area I want to cover because the pension plan in New York City is also archaic, and we need to revamp that plan. The Canadians are killing us in terms of retirement.
How would you make that first leap or that first step to revamp the pension system here in New York City? What steps would you take to modify that?
I would spin it out of the controller's office, where it is right now, set up an independent agency, hire top flight talent, stop given all the money to the fees to these managers, these money managers, do a lot of the stuff internally because you have the talent to do it, like the Canadians and the Irish and the people in the Netherlands. They outperform us by 2% every year. The New York City pension plan is $160 billion. 2% is billions of dollars. Mm-hmm. I know how to do it. It would save the city a lot of money. It can go into other services like animal care and control revamping. You know, people say the city doesn't have any money. Well, let's do this, and we'll have an extra $1 billion. I also have ideas about revamping the price of drugs. The city gets ripped off by purchasing drugs through intermediaries for city employees. We're paying 30% more than we should be paying when we have the leverage. We have the New York City has almost a $90 billion budget. We've got the leverage of a country. We can go to Pfizer and say, we'll let you have a monopoly on this cancer drug, but this is all we're going to pay you. Because right now, the health and welfare funds of the unions are going belly up because these drugs are prohibitively expensive. And of course, the taxpayers are picking up the tab. But I need help from all New Yorkers. This is a grassroots campaign, Teddy. I can't do it by myself.
Homelessness is at an all-time high here in New York City. What's your plan to reduce homelessness on the subways and the streetcars or wherever they happen to be homeless? What's the greatest plan or some type of new way of going about this?
Well, we need a number of things. For more affordable housing, which is not an easy thing to do, but I've got a plan to set up an affordable housing fund. A peer deter tax, and the money going into an affordable housing fund, for example, to build affordable housing, real affordable housing. For example, there are a lot of condos in this city that are purchased by people who don't live here. They just have these empty condominiums. They park their money there. London charges them a tax. Let's tax that and let that money go into a fund that we can build more affordable housing. That's number one. Number two, we need to be more proactive about mental illness. There are a lot of folks out there, unfortunately. My dad suffered from mental illness. I'm very familiar with it. It's a terrible disease. But we should be doing a lot more to help them. We need to do more outreach with mental health workers. We'll have to staff up the shelters with mental health workers and try to get these folks to get some help. And many of them can function very well. And the other thing we need to do is obviously be more aggressive about alcohol and drug treatment at the shelters. And the most important thing we can do is what de Blasio's done, mismanaged it. He hired a deputy mayor who was an expert on homelessness, never met with the person, she left. So there was no long-term plan. And the first person he appointed to the Department of Homeless Service was really not up to snuff. They had to replace them. So I have better managerial skills than de Blasio, and I've got better answers for the problem. We can bring it. We can reduce it. It's not a problem you can wave away with a magic wand, but we can do significantly better.
What would you like to tell us a little bit more about the topic that you just started to talk about briefly? Just to expand a little bit about the cost savings that are important to keep the city financially strong for the future, and also you have significant cost savings ideas, which could be probably a 5-part series. But just for the next 2 minutes, because we have
two areas. The price of drugs. The city could save about $1 billion. $1 billion on drugs alone if we merge each union has their own health and welfare plan, merge those plans and use it as leverage to bargain with the pharmaceutical companies. France does it, right? France says we'll sell you these drugs as a monopoly, but this is the price you're going to pay. So that's one area. The second area is pension savings. If we increase the performance of our pension plan by 2%, and just compete with the Canadians or be on par with the Canadians, we would save a couple of $1 billion a year. Because every time we're short, doesn't meet the pension plan has to gain 8% a year. If it gains 5%, the city has to pony up $1 billion, $800 million. Well, we can do much better. I've got the background to do it. Unfortunately, my opponent, Mr. de Blasio, doesn't have the financial.
Healthcare, a big thing going on as the new president steps into office on Friday of this week, when this show will be broadcast this evening right here at WPAT. In the meantime, what are some of your vision towards healthcare and the policy that basically
everyone
can get insurance.
I'm a big fan of single payer healthcare. It's a little complicated, but certainly, I think I've always been a fan of that because you cut out the intermediaries. Everybody has access to health care. The Affordable Care Act, which Mr. President-elect is talking about eliminating, would be a disaster. We have 22 million Americans that are being covered. But there are a couple things we can do here in New York that we can impose our own single-payer system. There are a couple of members of the Assembly that have proposed it. It hasn't gone anywhere because there's a lot of opposition in the Senate, which is a Republican Senate in New York. But that's an area that I would look at to make sure everybody's covered in New York.
And the police force, what would you do to turn things around here in New York City?
Well,
to make it more attractive for those people to get into the police department and to have anything?
The police department is deeply demoralized under Mayor de Blasio. The retirement rate is going through the roof. People can't wait to leave the job. Assaults against police officers have gone up 30% in New York City just last year. It's a huge number. What we need to do is obviously do a lot more recruitment, make sure the police force is diverse, right? In New York City's police department is fairly diverse now. It's over 50% minority and women, which is a good thing. But I do believe that the mayor has bashed the department to the point that he's demoralizing the entire force. Also, they don't have a contract. They're one of the few city agencies that don't have a contract.
Why is that?
Well, because the mayor has not proposed one that allows them to live a good quality of life in the city. It's very expensive to live in New York City, so they're at a stalemate right now. So those are the areas that I would focus on. Don't forget, de Blasio ran in 2013 bashing the New York City Police Department. Now, of course, he says that they're the greatest department in the world. But in 2013, he pretty much compared them to the Ku Klux Klan, and it was a terrible thing to do. It was pandering. And now, as a result of it, we have these problems. We have a demoralized force. The city's a rich city, right? I mean, crime is going down because crime is connected to concentrated poverty. If you look at the public housing in the city, crime is not down. Crime is up in those areas. So it's great if you live where I live or the west side of Manhattan, but if you live in the South Bronx, the 40th precinct, shootings are up, muggings are up. So it's very nuanced. The numbers don't tell the whole story. I want to make sure that every part of the city gets good police protection. There's no reason why the 40th precinct in the South Bronx has less detectives assigned to it than Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, where I live. It's just not fair. There's more crime there. So those are the issues that I would address, and I would also appreciate the work the police officers do in the city and not use them as a piñata, as Mayor de Blasio has done.
Can you tell us the positives or negative aspects of stop and frisk?
Oh, yeah. Well, listen, stop and frisk, if it's not applied constitutionally, is a disaster. You're going to turn the community off to the police. And there were too many stops in New York City. But having said that, stop and frisk is constitutional if you do it properly, if the cops are trained properly. You want a smart anti-crime cop who spots something suspicious, who knows the precinct, getting out of his car or her car and asking a question. You want that. It's bad when you were just stopping people at random, based on ethnicity, race. You can't do any of that stuff. That's illegal. I'm a lawyer. I'm familiar with the Fourth Amendment. You've got to do it based on the law. But you can't say that stop and frisk should be banned because it's settled law, and it's a decent law enforcement tool, and it allows savvy cops to prevent crimes.
Now tell us how you can help Mr. Rob Becerra over here, basically in terms of with the animals, and he's an activist, right? So
yeah.
What would you do to turn this whole thing around?
Well, I'm working with Rob and his organization and the people that support animal rights in the city. The one thing that I can say to them is that if Sal Albanese says X, I'm going to do X. I'm not going to do what Mr. de Blasio did, just lie to people. The revamping of the shelters and bringing in Austin-like shelters to 5 boroughs of the city is a commitment that I make, and that will restore the faith of the animal activists in the city who are very upset about what's happening, you can't blame them. I've seen the pictures of the dogs and cats that are being killed on a regular basis. There's not enough time to adopt the animals. It's unconscionable. And Teddy, that'll be done the first term of the Albanese administration. That's not a heavy lift, by the way. Not a heavy lift. It's just about budget dollars, and I'm going to allocate the money to do it because it's the right thing to do, and it will restore Rob's faith in politicians and also the people who are involved in animal rights in the city. But I want them to get involved and go to my website, sal2017.nyc. I could use their help. sal2017.nyc and help out my campaign. I could use some help.
Other ways of people contacting you through social media?
Yes,
Facebook,
I've got a Facebook.
Or other
I'm on
emails?
Twitter, Sal Albanese NYC, and I'm on Facebook, Sal Albanese. I hate to say politician. I don't like that term, but that's what the Facebook.
I want to thank Rob Becerra for having you as a guest tonight. It's going to be a great year for you. And Rob has a lot of things going on in terms of you have some things going on
coming
here.
up. Sure.
So let's turn the microphone over to Rob Becerra for a moment, who's been on the show several times. I've had very interesting guests and have done several of the interviews yourself, and I'm glad you could be here tonight to bring Sal Albanese in here and to share his vision with us here on New York Radio.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me. My name's Rob Becerra. I'm an actor and animal activist. A lot of you guys listening in out there know who I am. I endorsed Sal Albanese after I had a nice sit down with him. It's an Italian thing. We call it a sit down, right? So, yeah, I love you, Sal. I know, right? So we had a sit down. We talked. I explained to him what is going on. He wasn't well aware. So I said, let's get together with a couple of other animal advocates. And let's get you the right information so that you can understand what is going on and what changes need to be made. And when we sat down, he was very attentive. He was asking questions. He really had a deep desire. He has a good heart. So I said, all right, this is the guy I'm going to endorse. This is the guy we're going to work with. And since then, I've been campaigning out there with, utilizing social media to try to get people to understand this is our guy. This is the guy who's going to make the necessary changes at the ACC, but also make the necessary changes for New York City. This city is a great city, but it is plagued by a lot of issues that Mayor de Blasio has said would be taken care of, and he has not acted on it. That's a big issue. This is a one-term mayor. Just like I told everyone in the video, he is an own mayor. Mayor candidate Albanese is not taking money from special interests, not taking money from lobbyists. He wants to be an independent mayor. He wants to go in there owing nothing to anyone, so he can be fair. And I think that is what this city needs, and I am with him all the way. At the end of March, we will be doing a Sal for Mayor rally in honor of Sal. He will be there. I'm going to get all the information as far as location, the date, and everything else, because a lot of people are tuning in tonight, and they want to know. So I appreciate you having me on, and back to Sal. Thank you.
But one other question.
Yeah.
There are other rallies you have to help out the animals. Are those rallies coming up this spring as well?
There is a rally in April that's going to be based on the animal care and control, the ACC, and the New York City Housing Authority, which is another issue because they ban dogs of a certain weight, and 90% of the dogs that are in the ACC are above that weight. So it's like, we're trying to get that taken care of as well, because then more people can adopt more animals, and we can truly make it better for, the people of New York and the animals of New York. So that's what we're trying to make happen. I believe he's the guy to do it, and I'll be there the day he gets inaugurated. I'll be there, with you.